Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Adventurers Guild. Today, I recorded 2 episodes. The first one you're going to see is about a family in Palmyra, Maine that appears to have been attacked by werewolves. It's a fantastic story. The second one, which will be in a different episode than this one, is about a story I grew up hearing of a cave in California that's become lost. However, in this cave that's sworn in a legal affidavit, that there's a canyon, and this canyon drops down 3,000 feet. And at the bottom of the canyon is a river. And as the river contracts, as it has tides, there's a layer of thick black sand on each side of it. And in this black sand is loaded with gold nuggets and gold flakes. It's an incredible story, and that'll be on the next episode after this one. But let's get into this story. This episode takes place in Maine, and it concerns a married couple named Eric and Shelley Martin, and their 2 children, Sean and Chelsea. Eric worked at a paper mill, and one day while he was fixing some machinery, he hurt his back fairly bad, and it turned out that he blew a couple of discs and he became disabled. In 2006, Shelley and Eric decide they're going to move closer to where Shelley works, so that Shelley can come home on her lunches and check on Eric. They find a farmhouse in the paper. It's an older farm, but it's located close to her work. It's cheap and it's beautiful. It's completely surrounded by woods, and Eric loves to hunt. So this is the perfect place for them. Even though Eric was an avid hunter and super safe with his guns, Shelley didn't want them anywhere in the house. So Eric and Sean got together and they built this strong box. They put all the rifles in it, and then they locked it up and they stored it up in the loft of the barn. Now, this story has been told numerous times on YouTube, and you've probably seen the Paranormal Witness episode about it. However, they all leave out this one really important factor, and that's that from 2006 into 2007, that Eric is actually witnessing a ghost inside that farmhouse. He was seeing a little girl with braids. She was about anywhere from 10 to 13 years old, and she would wear this old pioneer-looking dress with the lace-up boots. And he said that she was often in the loft. He'd hear her walk down the stairs. He'd seen her out in the yard. However, Shelley had never witnessed anything until one night, while she was laying on her back about to fall asleep, she felt something just slap the hell out of her foot at the end of the bed. So she turns on the light and looks, and there's nobody there. She gets out of bed and she goes and looks at the dogs to see if it was one of them, because they sleep right at the foot of the bed on these 2 large beds. However, this night they're not there. And so she's like, well, where did the dogs go? And she walks around to Eric's side of the bed, and there's both of the dogs huddled up in the corner, completely terrified. And now she knows that something paranormal has happened. However, that was the only thing she ever experienced until the first week of May in 2007. Now, Eric and Shelley had this nightly routine of sitting on the porch and drinking coffee together. They both found this very healing and soothing. However, Shelley looked at the tree line and she saw these lights pulsating in and out. And she draws Eric's attention to it. He's looking at it and he's puzzled. So Sean was over visiting. They call him out. He comes out and looks, and he's puzzled. They think perhaps these are poachers. Now, between the house and Douglas Pond is this really deep thicket of woods. There's no way the light can be coming from a car or something like that behind the woods. There's just no way for it to shine through. This has to be right there in the woods, close towards the house. Sean and Eric grab flashlights. They work their way towards the lights, and when they get right to the tree line, the lights turn off. They devise this plan. Eric's going to go forward into the thicket with his flashlight on, and Sean's going to go into the thicket and come around with his light off, and they're going to meet. While they're separated, Eric knows there is something to his left. However, he can't see a thing. He knows it's there, he just can't see it, and it feels evil. He feels threatened, he feels like his life is in jeopardy. There's like this panic and anxiety that's starting to set in. So here comes Sean. They meet, and there's no poachers there, it appears. So they look around, there's no tracks, and the grass is not disturbed that's growing between the trees. No one's been there. So they turn around and they go back to the house and they don't see the lights again. Now, between the lights and the end of the month at Memorial Day, Chelsea's boyfriend Nathan comes for a visit. And the two of them decide to go for a walk in the woods, and they take the dogs with them. When they get to the tree line, they let the dogs go, and the dogs take off barking all happy and looking for something to chase. However, the dogs get this very aggressive sounding bark and growling. And so they go over to where the dogs are at, and they find this hole going into the ground. But what disturbed Nathan about it is that the hole was just too perfectly round to be natural. It really disturbed him quite a bit. And the dogs were very aggressive towards whatever was in there. However, they got the dogs, and Chelsea begs Nathan, come on, we got to get out of here. Let's get away from this thing. He finally agrees, and they leave, and they go back to the house. After that, at some point, we come to Memorial Day weekend, and this is where everything goes haywire. Shelley and Eric were out on the porch once again drinking coffee. However, Eric noticed there are no deer grazing in the field, and there's no frogs croaking, there's no crickets chirping, just this eerie dead silence. Something's wrong. So Shelley keeps talking, and Eric's just really concerned. He keeps looking into the field, and then something just tells him to hurry up and get in the house. He doesn't know why. He just says, we gotta go. And he jumps up. He grabs Shelley by the arm. He tries to take her inside. And she's like, hey, what's your problem? What's going on? Just as she's like asking him about it, she hears this rustling out in the field by them. And so she grabs the spotlight, turns it on, and looks. And there's these 3 sets of eyes looking at her. And she says it looked like they were fluorescent and glowing. Then Eric saw them as well. And then there's another sound over to their left. She shines the light. There's one there. They hear another one over there. They find 5 of these things. And they hurry up and they get in the house. They lock the door. And Shelley starts to shine the light out the door to see what they are. And Eric's like, don't do that. So as they're sitting there in the house and trying to figure out what to do next, Shelley's like, oh my gosh, Chelsea. So she takes off running and she goes upstairs. She looks out the window and she sees all 5 of them out there in the field. She wakes up Chelsea, and Chelsea's really sleepy and groggy. She gets up, goes to the window, doesn't really get a good look at them. She's just not concerned. And it surprises Shelley, but Chelsea turns around, gets in bed, and goes to sleep again. So Shelley's just looking at the window in amazement. Then one of them looks up directly at her in the window and stands up. So how Shelley described them was that they were about 7 foot tall, that the back leg reminded her of a kangaroo, and that where it came to the ground at the foot, it arched, and the back 2/3 looked like it was human, and the front third looked like it was canine. The other thing she can recall is that the light from the house and from the moon or whatever sources was available was shining on the claws, and she said you could see them so well. They were massive. She also recalls that they were light brown to dark brown in color, and that the hair was short and smooth along their body. However, when it got up towards where their neck was, it was tufted more like a lion or something, very unkempt and wild looking. She talked about how they were hunched, and that the snout protruded about 7 inches off the face of these things. Meanwhile, Eric hatches this plan. He's going to get the keys, walk out to the vehicle, back it up to the porch, load up Chelsea and Shelley, then drive to safety, and they'll come back the next day when the sun's out. So he grabs the keys, he unlocks the door, he goes outside, and he's about 20 feet away from the vehicle. He looks over, and he can see the 5 of them in the field. He feels completely safe about this. At the same time, Shelley comes down the stairs looking for Eric, but she can't find him. And then this scratching noise is coming from the kitchen and laundry room area. And she's like, oh my God, one of them's in here. So she's slowly working her way over there. She goes into the kitchen. She looks into the laundry room, and a window's open. And so she's slowly walking towards it, and she's reaching for it when she hears a scratching noise to her right. She looks over, and right there is her 2 dogs, huddled in the corner, scared to death, completely panicked. And so now Shelley knows that there's something more about these than them just being animals. She gets the window, closes it. Now Shelley's concerned. One of these things is definitely in the house with them. And she begins to cautiously go look for Eric. Outside, Eric manages to sneak over to the vehicle undetected. He's got the remote and he's looking for the button to open it. Just at that moment, bam, the lights come on. He drops the keys. And as he's looking for him, he hears a snarl over to his left. And when he looks over, there it is. There's this werewolf-looking thing right there. And the werewolf comes towards him, and just as it steps in the light, for some reason it violently retracts back out of it and then bolts off into the darkness towards where the rest of the pack is. Eric makes a mad scramble as fast as he can back to the house, but with his back injury, he hobbles. He gets in there and he slams the door closed, and there's Shelley, and she's not happy with him at all. And she confronts him like, why did you do that? Why did you go out there, leave us alone in here, and the door unlocked? So now they're just beside themselves what to do. And they're like, we don't have a choice. We're going to have to call 911. Though they know this is going to be a hard sell to get the sheriffs or the police to come out there. So the officer that answers the phone doesn't take them seriously as they were expecting. And he tells them, it's probably a moose or a bear. And they're like, you don't understand. This is not an animal. And he tells them, yes, it's, we get calls like this and it's always an animal. Just lock the doors, shut the windows. We'll be out in the morning if you need us. At this point, it's obvious the police are not coming. Eric and Shelley are on their own. Shelley goes upstairs to check on Chelsea, and when she does, Eric devises yet another plan. He started thinking about how he had gone out to the vehicle earlier, and the light turned on. It inflicted some sort of pain upon the werewolf. So he figured if he could get out there and flail his arms, he could get the motion light to turn on, and that would protect him till he could get in the barn, turn on the lights in the barn, and get his rifles. Then he could return back to the house with his rifle safely. And so out the door he goes, and he starts walking towards the barn. He's flailing his arms in the air. He gets the lights to turn on. And when he does, there are eyes on each side of him. The werewolves have him surrounded, and they're pacing back and forth like they're gonna pounce on him. He's looking forward. There's a huge gap of darkness between where the light terminates and the barn. He is not gonna make it. And now he has one other problem. As soon as he gets out of the range of the motion sensor, that light will turn off fairly quick. And so now Eric has these 5 werewolves surrounding him, and he's got to make a beeline back into the house before that light turns off. And luckily, by the grace of God, he made it back inside safely. They're at their wits' end now. They don't have guns, they can't get to the vehicle to leave, and the police are not coming. They are on their own. And as Shelley put it, they are now hostages in their home. These things are getting more aggressive and closing in on them. And the only thing they can think of to do is grab every sharp object they can find in the house. They start grabbing butcher knives. They grab a hatchet, the fire poker, anything they can get their hands on. They rush upstairs. They grab Chelsea, and they decide they're going to make their last stand in the master bedroom. So the 3 of them get up on the bed, and they just wait for daylight to come. And they realize the only thing between them and the werewolves is actually a window. Because they can now hear the werewolves up on the 2nd story, on the roof, just outside the window. They can hear them going back and forth, bumping into the walls. And they can also hear this weird noise they're making. And they said it was very demonic sounding. And they said you could tell they were communicating back and forth. It appeared to be some form of a language. By the grace of God, eventually morning comes around and the family was safe. Eric calls Sean and asks him to get over there right away, and he does, and together they all go out and they start walking the grounds, and they find footprints throughout the property, as well as these swaths right through the grass where the things had walked through it, and they go straight into the pond. So they didn't go to the hole, they actually went into the pond and terminated. In reflection, both Shelley and Eric talk about how these things could have killed them at any time. They're not sure really why they were there. While I was listening to Eric and Shelley tell their story, I think Eric may have made a very seriously bad calculation with these things. He claimed that when he went out to the car and the light came on and the thing came into the light, that it violently retracted. He assumed it was the light that had hurt this thing. However, earlier when they were on the porch drinking coffee, Shelley used the spotlight and shined it on them, and they didn't violently retract. So obviously, light does not hurt them. Also, in the woods, before they came, there was the lights out in the woods that seemed to be associated with these things. So, if you want to go on an adventure of your own and you're in the Palmyra, Maine area, be sure to visit this address. But do not enter the property or knock on the door. It's private property and you will be in big trouble. However, you can drive down the road at night and see if you have an encounter with one of these things. And should you happen to encounter one, take great precaution. Just 60 miles northeast of Palmyra, there was another encounter that seems pretty strange. There was a couple in the house, and the husband was doing something in a room, and they had a large window, and the light was shining super bright out of it. And he just happened to look over, and he was looking at the window when a wolf's head goes right by it. He watched it clear as day go right by the window. And he walks out, and he tells his wife, and he's like, it was definitely a wolf's head. It wasn't a bear's head. And he's like, it had to have been one of our dogs that just, for some reason, it was up on its hind legs and walked the distance of the entire window. And she's like, it's just not possible. The next morning, she goes out and she measures the window. And from the ground up to the window itself, to the bottom of the window, was 7 foot. Their dogs are not 7 foot tall when they stand up. And it was more than 7 foot tall because he could clearly see its head. The one other story that I'd heard in that area was there was a hunter that was out, found a massive corpse on the ground and thought it was a bear till he got up closer and he could tell it had canine paws. As always, if you visit this location or you have in the past and you have an experience to share, please tell us about it in the comments below. Also, if you happen to post a video about it, be sure to leave the name of your YouTube channel and the name of the video so that our viewers can find it and we can drive traffic to your channel. That's going to do it for this episode. Be sure to click on that logo to subscribe or watch one of these videos. And until next time, we're off on another adventure. God bless.